I hear this guy, and he's on the phone. He's clearly on the phone with his wife, and he's arguing about something, and he hangs up and he looks at his son, and the kid's there. The kid looks up at him and he says, "Son, I'm gonna tell you something right now. Don't try to understand women. Women understand women. That's why they hate each other."
Episode 34. I actually remembered. Man, I can't get over these. I would be lying if I tell you I didn't put thought now. So I love these podcasts. Like when we're here, we're fun, right? Mm-hmm. But these fucking cameras stress me out, man. Like it's like your wife has that mirror that you can see everything.
You have a sweet blackhead.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I'm shiny as hell right now. Look at this. I'm not even sweating, but I'm shiny. It makes you think about it. So, Richard, let me ask you a question, man. So we grew up in Miami, right? We grew up in Miami business. We grew up in the real estate industry in business. I even tested it out the other day. We could get, with 2 phone calls, we could get to anybody in Florida, pretty much. That fair to say? Definitely in Miami. Definitely in South Florida.
Definitely in Miami. Yeah.
Definitely in South Florida. Yeah. Usually one, right?
Yeah.
So we've grown up in this business. We've done everything. Are you not even are you concerned about these New Yorkers, these California guys moving in, and changing the dynamic? We got a lot of these bigger companies moving in now, right? I also think that we're almost the new New York. They always said if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Yeah. Motherfucker, let me tell you something, man. Coming to Miami where there's 35 different cultures. Yeah. Right? I describe, so what people don't understand, so when I'm trying to explain the Miami business culture to people, so I'm like, imagine a place where there's people from every broken country you can possibly imagine. Yeah. Right? Anytime there's a political coup.
What does Trump call them? Shithole countries.
Shithole countries, right? Yeah. That's our boy Trump, right? So, I know you're not a fan of the guy, but you got to admit
that's funny. He's very funny. He's incredibly funny.
Funny he is. So, but I mean, if there's a political coup in Colombia, if there's, wherever the hell people are running, and I'm hearing Ukrainians are coming.
Oh yeah.
They're North Miami. Yeah, North Miami. I mean, so imagine a culture where everybody's coming from every broken country, Venezuela, Colombia, this and that. Yeah. What they don't understand is that they come from like New York and California where a contract is a contract, where to a place where a contract is just a mild suggestion.
Yeah. Like the pirate code
of whatever
their guidelines
of whatever should happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like doing a deal and with people that have no respect for the law whatsoever because they're not supposed to they're
supposed to. They're just not used to it.
Well, right, because in their country it's just okay. There's a contract or there's a police. Dude, I've been to these countries. You don't get a ticket. You pay. Yeah. The police officer off.
They're like, you want to take it or you want to?
You want to take it? So it's a culture of corruption. Right? Corruption. It's a culture of corruption. So we're already that. Now you add to that the New Yorkers and their political leanings, right? Because the reason why Florida's doing as well as it is, and I don't give I try not to get as political here, but it is what it is. DeSantis is the reason why. Is he perfect? No. Is there issues that we have that we need to take care of? Like the insurance one, which is a major issue? Yes. But, I mean, we're doing as well as we're doing because of the way, our politics were structured by him and everything. And are these New Yorkers going to turn this into No,
man. No. Because there isn't sufficient density of them. I don't think. There isn't enough of them. But I do agree with you that, so look, if you have enough money, right, take Griffin from, the Citadel, guy comes from Chicago.
That's one, right?
And I heard this wild story the other day. I don't know if it's true, but it sounds good. Right. Where
should be true. If it's not, it should be.
Right. And I think it's true. Where he offered like a few schools $30 million so that they would take his employees' children into the schools. Okay, and I think like Ransom said no, and I think
why would they say no?
Well, because they didn't feel like they needed it, I guess. So Ransom said no, and I think
so Ransom for our Australian fans and fans from other places It's one
of the finest private schools.
Is it the school?
It could be. Ransom Everglades. I mean, there's a few that are like the.
So Ransom Everglades, just so you guys know, to give you a little context. So when I first went there, I went there for a basketball game, right? I was not in Ransom Everglades. I was in the opposite of Ransom Everglades for school.
Right. Exactly.
And I show up for a basketball game there, and I remember I will never.
Looks like an Apple store.
I will never.
I mean, it's amazing.
I will never forget the day I walked into Ransom Everglades. So much so that from then on, when I had a date, right, I would take them to Ransom Everglades. I was like, I just saw the most beautiful place. I needed to take girls there to see it. Like it was just I couldn't believe it.
Strange. I mean, pretty place, but strange.
Well, if you need a quiet place to be with a young lady, and if you want an ocean view, and ocean view school with sailboats and shit.
The football field leads onto the bay. Like they kick it into the water.
Right.
I mean, there used to be a kid back there that was back in the boat getting the football.
Right. So so it's on the bay. So if the football goes into the water, there's an actual kid from the sailing team that goes out there. And gets it.
It's amazing.
Right.
So anyway, Ransom said no, and I think maybe Carrollton said no as well, but Gulliver ended up taking it. So I mean, Gulliver's they're under construction. I mean, building new campuses.
Did you get that from the source that I think you got it from? Our boy.
No. But he does. It was funny. I was with him yesterday, and we were talking about how the high school is getting a new campus. I mean, it's going to be spectacular. Right. So, but when you have enough money, okay, I don't think there are real barriers to entry. Okay, so like Mr. Griffin is here, and we're welcoming him, and we love to have him in Florida. And the reality of the matter is that his learning curve isn't. I mean, come on, he's Ken Griffin of Citadel. Now, I can tell you that I have New Yorker friends, and in fact, they're quasi business partners that they have had like a shock. Like they thought they were going to get here and operate like New York, and that this was New York, and I got New York friends and my New York this and New York that, and they've taken a beating.
Yeah.
And they concede. They're like, hey, it's a different world down here. Number one, the quality of people, quite frankly, of the work that they do. So I have doctors and friends that came from New York, and they're shocked about how poor, by comparison, our medical care is. Like, this one guy, he shall remain nameless, was like, I'm in the hospital and they're killing people. I mean, it's crazy, bro. They'll kill you here, And so now you think about the care that we have in comparison to some of these broken countries. And, people come from those countries to Miami. So, like in that sense where, everything is relative. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to change the dynamic. I don't think there's enough of them. We welcome them here. I'll tell you what has changed. The price of amenities. Okay. So like all the clubs down here, all the private clubs, Lagorce, Riviera, Ocean Reef, these places, Indian Creek.
But it had to do with that, or it has to do with just that everything's doubled?
No, well, everything is certainly more expensive. But what happens is that, like, before when you were at these places, there was, fees, annual fees and things like that weren't always going up. Maybe the initiation fees, what you got to pay to get in, but what you pay once you're there, those weren't rising as steadily. But now what happens is they're pricing out people that have been there for 30 years because it's like, oh, we don't want to pay, $20,000 a year in dues. And it's like, really? Because the New Yorkers think that that's incredibly cheap. They're used to paying $250,000
that's what's happening to real estate too.
Right.
I mean,
same thing.
Same concept.
So I
traffic
think
too is getting
in
crazy.
That sense, that changes. The restaurant scene has certainly gotten a lot better. A lot of these big New York groups have opened restaurants here. I mean, just Major Food Group alone. Right. There's a bunch of new high-end restaurants. Thomas Keller literally just opened a new place in Coral Gables at the La Palma building. So in the past 4 years alone, the saturation of like quality luxury living dynamics has gotten much better. And I think that's because, real money has come in from these places, New York, Chicago, California. So
you're saying that the saturation of them is not enough. And maybe and now we also got to use a little bit of common sense there and say, look, those guys are running away from that. Right. It's going to be a while before they start turning back into that. And,
and I mean, look,
and they might not have never been that.
Right. Usually those guys are not. And again, remember, everything is, the majority rules in a way, and especially on these social justice and type issues. I mean, I think there are 3 reasons why Florida has really benefited since COVID. And one of them is, of course, the governor and the governor's policy. And, we made a hat. It was very funny, that there's a hat that says, Florida. And then it says open since the whole fucking time. You know, and you know,
can you get waters, man, please? I'm sorry, man. Thank you.
that's it's funny and it's accurate. So we also the weather, okay, is a big motivator here, believe it or not. Although once they get hit by a hurricane, you know, they kind of hesitate.
But
you know what else a big one? No state income tax.
Yeah. But let me tell you something about the weather. I think that those guys, they don't. So I go to, as you know, I go to Pennsylvania a lot, right? So these Pennsylvania guys are always talking, oh, I want to go to Miami. I want to go to Miami. I want to go to Miami. You know, so much so that we just had 30 of them come down for like a wrestling camp that we would usually go up there, and they came down here. So I've been over there for the summer. That's beautiful weather. I mean, it's 70s.
I know, man, but that's 3 months out of the year. 9 months out of the year, they're getting their asses kicked.
But that's what they think summer is what I've realized.
Oh, yeah.
They come over here and their assholes are sweating. I mean, right. You know what I'm saying?
They're like, it's 7 a.m. Why is it 95 degrees?
Why am I sweating right on the way to my car at 7 a.m.? So their concept of summer is a little bit off. And when they get there and they get hit with the real summer, it's like
Well, what's funny is when we talk about that, it's just it's more of a reminder of like where we grew up and where we're from, which is like not, you know. I joke about it with Rodney now that like for people that the word summer is a verb, you know, where it's like, where do you summer?
Right.
It's like, man, I used to summer at fucking Continental Park, or, you know, like, you know, it's like we had a slip and slide, you know, and we played basketball. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, the Snowbirds, they got it right. I mean, down at Ocean Reef, which is, by the way, is a place here. It's beautiful, golf courses, you name it, pools. And, you know, now it's like they're dead time.
Right.
You know, so, you know, now is like when they're happy to have the people from Miami there.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. The fact of the matter is that, you know, the Snowbirds, as they call them, they go back up north. You know, during when the weather's beautiful up
they
there,
got it right. They got it
you
right.
know, and then they come down here when the weather's horrific over there.
That's their right, but summer's not summer, right? I mean, sorry, when they come over here, it's for the winter,
right?
It's basically a summer,
right? That's exactly right, and that's the beauty of it. Of course, our summers are painful and they're very hot. But it's, you know, 4 months out of the year. And then the rest, you have temperate climate. You know, so it's like you're doing better, you know, 70, 80% of the time.
You're 60 degrees here, and you go outside and you go to the office, and it's like you see the women with the high boot, the Uggs, right? And it's like
the scarves,
the earmuffs.
I mean, even still, like by 11 in the morning, 30. It's 80.
Right.
So you know, it's morning.
Winter lasts hours.
Morning winter wear. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So you're how is it being? Because I'm enjoying your transition into being a sports dad, right? Like
wonderful.
It's fun, huh?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool stuff.
It's the best.
Yeah. It's you know, man. One thing you and I have had. I'm sure we had these conversations before, but my take on sports is that if you're doing okay financially and you know and you have the ability to have your kid go through life without any adversity whatsoever, that's not necessarily a good thing. A kid not having any adversity is even psychologists even say that your brain does not develop, like your brain is meant to handle through you know, growing and everything it's supposed to handle a certain amount of adversity to develop correctly. So I got some friends that, you know, we go back and forth on this because I mean I got one in particular that's a little bit of an extreme. Is like his whole job is to make sure that his kids have zero adversity just growing up, right? I mean zero. Are you preparing? You know, are you preparing somebody for life? You know, and I think that sports is what I call synthetic adversity, right? It is tears, it is joy, it is this person beat me today, especially in these you know, team sports a little bit less, and you know, I grew up playing team sports and I got a little bit of understanding of it, of working hard and everything, but you know, my kids are both my son wrestles and my daughter's in tennis, and man, what, you know, at 6, 7 years old, you know, crying for hours because you lost, and then working hard for 3, 4, 5 months with, you know, a person's picture in your room.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
And chasing them, you know, and actually going and beating them.
Yeah.
You know, at the highest stage in youth sports, you know, it builds something into that that shit I didn't have. You know what I mean? Like, because we had real adversity, right? I mean,
Yeah, I was about to say I'm pretty sure I had some adversity, but I mean, listen, I was blessed, true, growing up. But sports is incredibly important. You know, psychology and things like that is not something I know a lot about. You listening out there, for those of you who think I know everything, think I know everything.
Well,
I don't know a lot about psychology and things like that, but it seems right. I mean, it's definitely, you know, a life experience. I mean, you gotta, if you never lose, you have no idea how good it is to win.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's the same with everything else. You know, if you struggle, then when you have good times, you're able to kind of understand how good the good times are and what the bad times are.
But
you know?
but that's the thing. Like in our kids' lives, you know, and you know, I get criticized sometimes by some of my friends, and you know, as far as, you know, how hard do we go at it?
Yeah, even me.
Right. Well, not anymore. Though.
Not anymore. No.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Right? At the beginning, you did. You know. What was your saying?
No semblance of a normal childhood.
So so Richard and I's friendship, you know, here we're very filtered with each other right now, right? But in our regular lives, there's zero filter. So we were at a thing at your office or something, and I took my son, and he introduces me, and he introduces my son, and he goes, by the way, that kid. He has nothing that even remotely resembles a normal life.
a normal childhood. Yeah, poor kid. Yeah. Which, by the way, childhood, you know, is a relatively new concept. It's
turn on the AC.
It's pretty fascinating because, you know, like baby clothes and all that, like that's all relatively new. If you look at photos of like the 1800s, you know, like when cameras were, you know, just kind of came out.
Everybody dressed the same type of stuff?
Right. There were like little adult clothes, you know, so, and, you know, they were basically, children were a good way to kind of like build up your employee coffers, you know, like they worked the family business, they worked the farms. You know, but now this notion of concept and, you know, of childhood and child labor laws, I mean, these are all relatively new, and primarily in the United States. I mean, as we know, in other countries, they're not nearly as sensitive to the needs of children. Kids work right away, you know, so I mean, they don't let adults suffer adversity here to these, really. I mean, people suffer it, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
But man, it's like you're not allowed to have anxiety now. If you have anxiety, we're going to give you a pill for it. I
tell my son all the time, like I don't, from early age, I don't have a memory of going to school and not being worried about getting in a fight. I mean, you know what I mean? About there's somebody there that I might have an issue with at some point. There's the, you know, and that's the thing. That's what leads me to that. Like, and that's one of the other questions that, you know, you and I talk about, you know, privately, you know, private school versus public school, you know? So, my, and again, you know, for all you feminists out there, here's some real good conversation for you guys. Is it different to raise a boy than it is to raise a girl? Do you go a little harder?
Of course it's different.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like the girl's allowed to be a princess and a little bit more protected, and, you know, and the boy. So is public school...
And by the way, all the feminists are hating that word right now. Your use of the word princess is like offensive.
No, and I assign gender too. That's
right. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Have you seen the girl that's going to be the new Snow White?
No.
Oh my God, she's getting a huge beating. And we routinely talk about Disney. I happen to be a fan of Disney, okay? And, you know, I don't think they're the devil. But I certainly disagree with some of the things they've been doing. But anyway, that's another conversation. But the girl that they're about to remake Snow White, there are no dwarves, of course, because that's offensive.
Even if you call them dwarves and not midgets?
No, they're not. No, that dwarf is like a bad word.
Dwarf is not a bad word too,
Yeah. So you don't want to say that. But so there are no dwarves. I think there's maybe one person who's not very tall. Okay. And then vertically challenged, like me. And the new Snow White, she apparently is not a fan of the original Snow White, or at least that's what they say about her. That she hates Snow White, and she did this interview on the red carpet, and they were like, the actual actress is going to do it, and she was on a red carpet or something. She was being interviewed, and they asked her, they're like, oh, what do you think of, you know, tell us about your character and this and that, and she was like, well, it's not 1933, okay, so she's not waiting on the prince, okay, to rescue her or anything else, and it's going to be about how she takes charge which, by the way, listen, I have a daughter, so in a way, I love that. right? Like in a way, I'm like, okay, this is great, and she doesn't have to wait for the man to rescue her. That's of course, that's common sense. But I just wanted to point out that your use of the word princess is problematic.
Yeah. So listen, don't get me, don't get me cranking, bro.
I'm just saying.
You know what buttons to push. That's the thing. If anybody knows what buttons to push, it's you. So my whole thing is this, right? Jordan Peterson, said one thing. He says a lot of things that I really agree with. But one of the things is that our most important job as parents is to make sure our kids are liked, right? That they're likable.
Yeah.
Right. Have you, and in my world, I see, we're traveling the country and going to these tournaments and everything. And then there's both sides. They're like, dude, this dad's real cool. And this kid's a dick. And then there's like the vice versa. You know what I mean? Dude, the kid's such a nice kid. I can't believe that asshole's is dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So our job,
I think people have that with me. They see my daughter and she's like such a sweet little girl.
And then meet you and it's
then
it's
it's
a rude
like,
awakening.
my God,
well, and Cindy
how
too.
the fuck
Cindy's a
is
sweetheart
that?
too.
Right. That's it. Well, listen, I only look stupid.
Again, kids are, if we go with that concept that, look, our job is to make sure that our kids are likable, but is it also that our kids can flourish and communicate with any social group per se, right? So is going full private, top of the line schools, right? Just as extreme as going to the worst schools where, let's not call it a culture of winning. It's a culture. It's a
culture
whole
of
different
survival.
Culture of survival.
Yeah.
More single parents, more crime, more drugs. Well, more drugs is it depends who you ask, but right, better drugs is definitely at the better.
Right. There's plenty of drugs quality, at private school.
Better
I
quality.
think. Yeah.
So it is should we think about it as a balance, right? Should we? And again, let's say I'm talking to you as let's take your daughter out of it. Let's say you have a son, right? Do you go a little bit half and half? Do you want them to go to, look at and a friend of mine brought something up. He's like, so what do you want your kid to do? I'm like, well, I want him to have his own company and and okay, so who would his employees be? Right. I mean, do you need to be able to communicate? And listen, man. I've realized that extreme wealth. It's almost a different language at some point.
Of course.
You're the clothes you wear,
everything.
Right.
The people you're around, the things you do. I mean, it's you almost communicate without communicate. You know what I mean? You could tell by what a guy's wearing, Everything, I think, is a balance. I mean, look, kids have to have adversity. I mean, first of all, I'm a firm believer in the fact that there is not really a level playing field, okay? I mean, there's just not. We got friends in our group of friends that we have the chat every day that one of them was, now he moved to a different school now, but one of them was a teacher at a school that's, let's call it a survival culture school, and he was there for years. And the stories the guy would tell us about what those kids go through on a daily basis. I mean, it's just not the same environment. Can you make it? And do many of those kids make it? They do. But those are odds beaters.
Yep.
Okay. Whereas
you're born with a special something inside.
Right.
Fire
those are odds beaters, because it's like anything else, man. If you're always in a place and it's cold and it's damp and you don't have the right, clothing, and you don't, you're always hungry.
Your parents are giving you the wrong message.
Yeah,
too.
I mean that's going to be hard, and it's harder. You're stacking the chips, and then you go to a place where everything is reassuring, everything's beautiful, everything's state of the art, and you have all the right kinds of support. The parents are involved because they have time to be involved. Yeah. Right. Like you got 4 room moms like per grade, where like my daughter goes to school. There's like a room mom. There's like a committee of room moms. And it's like they do a birthday party, and it's like they worry about
like helicopter parents.
Right.
A fucking fleet of helicopters.
Are you bringing in, no nuts, please? And it's like, no nuts. And the other place is like, is this food? Right. It's just fucking amazing. Is there one for the teacher? You know, so it's Yeah, everything is relative. So of course there should be some balance. You know, what I think the beauty of sports, especially for the kids that are, let's call it, you know, like a silver spoon has a negative connotation, but for the kids that have it better, let's say, sports is good because losing sucks for everybody, you know, and you typically play against kids that come from the survival type schools, and those kids, you know, typically kick
they're
your
on your
teeth in.
team.
Yeah, they're on your team too, and so you know, you kind of, by putting them in that situation, they get exposed to, I think, more a bigger variety of what life is really like, and that's valuable. You know, it's like you see
some
these
of the
kids
most fucked up people I've met come from the higher society.
Of course.
Parents weren't there.
Yeah.
Was it you that sent me that thing the other day that the only one that's going to remember you working late nights
is your kids. Killed me.
Killed me.
Yeah.
The only one that's going to remember you working late nights.
In 20 years, the only people that'll remember you working late was your kids.
Yeah. That's a real one right there.
That's the balance for us too. I mean, you know, like listen, I like nice things. I want to have nice things. I want to be able to do the things that, you know, some of my relatives and the people I work for do. And I see that, and it's very difficult to be around them. There really is something to be said for that cliche of keeping up with the Joneses. You know, like I never 20 years ago, I didn't really understand that phrase because I didn't know any
you hadn't
Joneses.
met any Joneses.
Right.
Yet.
I was about to say, I didn't know any Joneses, but now that I know a bunch of Joneses, it's like, I'm like, God damn, I'm so far, you know? I wake up in the morning and it's like, I'm far away from.
We were talking about that just a couple
you know,
days
like,
ago.
I got to remember I'm closer to Martinez than I am to Jones, you know? So it's hard. It's hard, but you know, look, and we were talking about it a minute ago about what the kids can and can't do nowadays. There's a great movie called The Goonies. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, of course.
It's a fucking 80s classic.
How fucking dare you ask me
I
about
mean,
the Goonies?
I don't know, bro. Did you have a TV? I keep hearing the story about the ripped sneakers, bro. So, you know, it was
Blue Pumas, bro. A lot of people got their asses
they
kicked
didn't
because
have
Pumas,
a whole,
I tell you that.
They were air conditioned.
Listen, man.
So
literally, a lot of people got their asses kicked for those because making fun of me with those Pumas. I tell you that.
So we're watching The Goonies recently, and I'll never forget that when the movie ended, one of like the biggest takeaways that my kid had was that she was like, "Where were the parents this whole time?"
Right.
You know, and it was like, "What do you mean?" The dad was like working, and she was like, no, because you know, like the kids are running around, bro, like they're on their bikes, this and that. They're gone for like hours on end, right? No cell phones. You know, like in our day, dude, we got on the bike and fucking we drove around and that. Now,
hours.
I'm sure there are places in the United States.
Wake up in the morning
and haul ass.
Don't come back without a cell phone and a tracker.
Right.
Like just go and ride all.
Hey, be home before dark.
Be home before dark.
Dude, the fuck out of here.
Right.
And by the way, I'm certain that there are still places in the United States where you can do that. And by the way, that's great. You know, that's what it's like. You know, what's the guy, Jason Aldean, the guy got a horrible, he almost got canceled recently. Well, it depends. Half the country elevated his music to the top of the charts, and the other country, like, you know, they made voodoo dolls of the guy.
One of
try this in a small town.
Try this in a small town.
Yeah, so look, in small towns, I'm sure they still have more of that, okay? Yeah. In Miami, personally, father of a little girl, my daughter will never get on the bike and, like, go for a ride. Like, she's never going to go, I'm going to ride to my friend's house because... You know, well, I'm a glass half empty guy by nature, you know, and I watch way too much TV, I guess, and read the news. And she's never going to do that. If I had a son, it'd probably be a little easier to let him do that.
So let me tell you one thing that is like, did I send you? Okay, did I send you the meme that we made of my son with the egg in his hand? I didn't send. I did.
No.
You didn't fucking pay attention to it. I'm like, dude, you got to look at this, and you didn't pay attention to it.
Right,
but we send each other.
Shit. Oh wait, I do remember that. Yeah.
So one of the beautiful things I love about wrestling.
Oh yeah.
One of the beautiful things I love about wrestling is that I go to places that I would never ever have an excuse to go to. Right. So I mean, a barn in the middle of Urbana, Ohio. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or another farm in like Maryland. You know. So what those kids do that we wouldn't dare do our kids. So I mean, I get there and I really understand the concept that we're just too helicoptery. Mm-hmm. So I go out of my way to loosen up that helicopteriness, you know, for lack of a better term, right? So when we get there, yeah, my son is squirrel hunting with my fucking hillbilly buddies. You know what I'm saying? So I got pictures of, you know, him with squirrels and, you know, full camouflage gear. Yeah. They're on their ATV and I'm like, three of them on an ATV with a fucking gun in their hand.
Yeah. You know? Hey, the pothole, bang, and shit goes off.
Right. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
hey,
I mean, they're in the woods, and I remember one time I got there. I'm like, hey, where's Elijah? I'm like, oh, I don't know, and he's back there somewhere, and back there somewhere is just acres.
Yeah, you look back there somewhere is a fucking field, a forest.
So then I'm like, and as loose as I'm trying to be, I'm like, dude, where the fuck is he? You know what I mean? So now I'm like walking through the woods screaming, hey, you know, and this, and then, you know, again, they come all full of mud with a couple squirrels in their hands, and they're looking for deer, and, you know, like the hunting culture. We're not part of a hunting culture
at all.
Right. So I get a video from another buddy of mine. They were dove hunting, and it's his, you know, his son with a fucking shotgun, and you know, and sending a video, Elijah, hey, I'm dove hunting and everything. That's like a whole different world. So I don't know about running around the streets, but there's a whole world as city slickers that we are that we don't know exists. So the funny thing is that the video that I sent Richard was, you know, again, my son's never seen, you know, like a chicken coop. You know what I mean?
Like
so now
chicken, he's like, this came out of the bird's ass?
Yeah, no. He's like,
fuck, I'm never eating eggs again.
Yeah, so no, he's asking his buddy, which, you know, we call, you know, he calls, you know, they call us derogatory Hispanic
of course,
names, and we call them derogatory, you know, hillbilly and this and that, you know. So, you know, he's asking, you know, my son's asking, you know, or his hillbilly buddy, let's say, you know, hey, is the little chickens come out of this, and he's holding an egg. Yeah. And the face of his buddy is like, what? And we caught a picture
he's
of it.
He's like, no, asshole, the stork brings them.
And we made a meme out of it. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. And another thing that we have to deal with too, talking about letting the kids go out and everything, that we have to deal with, that, you know, that our parents didn't have to deal with and everything, and is the social media part of it.
Oh my God, man.
That's a scary part.
What a nightmare, man.
That's a scary part, right? So, you know, if you add, you know, I heard the other day, and I don't necessarily think it's true, but it's easier to raise a kid when you're broke, right? You know, I don't know. I mean,
man, no way.
Well, hold on.
It's hard in different ways, dude.
But hold on. So, you know, if you're raising a kid in a 10,000 square foot mansion versus, you know, a 1-bedroom apartment, are you closer together? Right? Are you more in tune?
Yeah, you're so on top of it, you probably fucking hate each other.
Well, yeah, or you're just way closer, right? You know, like when you go to a hotel room, you know, when you stay at a hotel.
You know what? I'm willing to concede that I think richer kids can be more awkward. Like they
in non-rich settings. If you take them out of Vail.
Right.
If you take them out
even with their parents, you know, like it's weird. Like, you know, the interaction can be. Listen, there are exceptions to every rule. You know, obviously on the show we recently talked about HELOCs, you know, and it was probably a home equity line of credit, and we were like, hey, you're not, you know, technically you're not really supposed to use it to go traveling and shopping. And of course there's exceptions to every rule, and some asshole was like, that's not true, it's a portfolio product, and you can, you know, there's a bank that'll do it. And it's like, yeah, man, what I'm saying is generally
asshole.
Okay, so you know, there's an exception to every rule. Okay, you know, nothing is in this life is 100% except what they say, death and taxes, right? The only two certainties. So look, I see it on both sides. It's got to be harder to a certain extent, because you can't, like, you know, they do leave the one, you know, the 600 square foot apartment, and they go out, and they're inevitably going to have friends that are wealthier. You know, so in my family specifically, I'll give you an example. I got a bunch of older brothers. One of them is a wildly successful guy. I'm talking jets, boats, planes. You know him.
Huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, huge pain in the ass. You call him my sister, right? It's actually a great one. It's very funny. But then I have another brother who's more corporate America type. And by the way, he's done very well for himself.
Very nice guy.
He's done very well for himself. He has 2 daughters. And I remember that when they were kids, they would go and hang out with my other brother's kids, their cousins, and then they'd come back and they'd say things to my brother like, well, why can't we do this and why can't we do that? And my brother would have to tell them, because we're not Oscar, you know, we don't have that kind of money. We don't do that, you know, and so that's got to, and by the way, they were living in Coral Gables and going to private school. Like, they didn't have it bad. It's like, they
weren't in the hood.
Like, trust me, you don't know, you have a fucking banana hammock, you know, and it's like, what's that? It's like a hammock for your bananas. Okay. Trust me, not everybody has one of those. Okay. That's from a funny movie, actually, but it was really like that. But still, that's got to be hard. That's got to be taxing. I sent you that video the other day. I know it killed me. I was like, who's cutting onions? And there was like this dad that it was his daughter's birthday and he couldn't afford a cake.
Yeah.
He could not afford a cake for his daughter's birthday, but he managed to get a slice of cake.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's a video of him coming into like his 600 square foot apartment that it looked like 9 people lived in it. And he had the little candle on the cake and the little girl broke down crying. It was like the greatest thing she had ever seen. You know, that's got to be very hard. So, you know, is it easier? I don't know. Might they be exposed to less problematic things? Maybe. At the same time, they're going to suffer a higher level of desperation, right? So they might.
But if we just discussed that you need a certain amount of adversity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So we are who we are, right? You and I, which as different as we are, we're very, very, very similar, right? As much as we argue, I don't say we're different, but as much as we argue, which is a lot, I could tell you I'd argue with you pretty much more than anybody in my life. Period. End of story.
Pain in my ass. It's unbelievable.
Right. So, but you know, we grew up kind of like, you know, I think our dads did, and moms too, and everything, right? But I think of growing, you know, there's that famous picture that I always bring up with you, you know, in military fatigues, right? So there's a picture of Richard. If he could send it to you, we could put it up on the screen, right? Of him.
I will. I'll send it. It's pretty good.
It's his dad and Richard dressed in military fatigues, right? Richard's climbing a fucking rope, right? You know, on a tree,
crazy,
right? So you know, we can't.
Yeah, he'd open fire in the house too.
Right. So
like at TVs and shit. And
right.
He was
so
pissed off.
no, his dad was a unique, absolutely very unique individual.
Colorful.
Very colorful.
Colorful character.
I mean, it's like you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody out of a fucking movie. You know what I mean? So, you know, his desk had to be elevated so that everybody has to like look up at him. Right, so that everybody has to look up at him.
Your neck was perpetually cocked in the upward position.
So his
like
desk, he purposely elevated his desk so when you would meet with him, you were kind of looking up, and the trinkets on his desk were, you know, like
grenades. I actually have the grenade in my office.
The one he put on his desk.
Yeah,
and the floor wasn't the floor red,
blood red
floor.
Yeah.
Right,
Crazy,
you know, like. Right, it was like
he'd sit there with his ring and just
out of a movie, you know. So we are. Oh wow, another round of waters.
No, it's just
coffee. Or is that
coffee.
drinks? Oh, that's coffee.
Oh.
Thank you.
Black. Can I have it? Sorry.
Is that yeah? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you for going beyond, you know, the Call of Duty.
Above and beyond.
Yeah. What did I say?
Of and on. Some shit. Yeah. It's
of and on and
you
beyond.
put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. No.
No, nothing. Just black. Yeah. So, you know, if our job as parents is our job as humans, right? And specifically in today's society, where it's fair to say that the bar is set really, really low, right? As far as a person having, you know, a certain amount of mental toughness and being able to go through adversity.
Mental toughness. What's that?
Right. So, you know, it's you know, so yeah, I think that a person who is below middle class or close there, you know, extreme poverty. You know,
they develop mental toughness, I think, more readily.
Yeah. You know, everything that's real, you know, synthetic, and you know, and we see it in the UFC. I know you only watch. I'm not even gonna go there. I was gonna start getting political, but I'm gonna leave it alone.
No, you were gonna be insulting to 300 million people right now. That's okay.
Okay, so you know,
we gotta get views somehow.
I only watch combat sports. So, a really interesting, unique thing is like when you see a guy like a Bo Nickel, right? You have no idea who Bo Nickel is. You never even heard of the guy?
I have not.
Right. So Bo Nickel is a blue chip, best wrestling pedigree you can possibly imagine, but a kid who grew up, you know, upper middle class, went to the best wrestling camps, you know, and you know, went to Penn State University, but you know, as decorated as a wrestler as you can possibly imagine. But he's fighting fucking rock-eating Dagestanis, right? And so technically, if you know, it's like the analogy of you know, you're an alley cat fighting a house cat, right?
Yeah.
So the alley cat's gone through a lot of shits, but now here's the issue. Now, Bo Nickel's fucking them up, right? And he's going to continue to do so, right? So it's that you know, if you, again, that was the comparison of synthetic adversity versus real adversity, right? I wonder how different it is. Everything synthetic is a little bit worse and everything like that. But I wonder if we could create enough synthetic adversity so that our kids can handle whatever's coming, because life's not easy.
Nope.
Life's not easy. No matter how good you do, no matter, you gotta be ready for the toughness that it brings. And now,
you know, it's funny that you say that, but it's like, as time passes and technology improves, I mean, a lot of the purpose or the function of a lot of the technology we use is supposed to make life easier. You know, especially so like when you see, you know, post-industrial revolution, and you see like the initial commercials that would run for things like a washing machine, you know, was fascinating, or a dishwasher. And it was like, the time you'll have to spend with your family and friends, because you don't have to like go with the fucking washboard and then the clothesline and all that. And it's like, no, now you can wash your clothes and you can, you know, you can dry your clothes, and it's all done in much better quality in half the time. But really, society continues to get more complex, and then people suffer. They have harder lives in other ways. You know, and like there's a guy that I know you love intensely, is actually a great lawyer in this town.
Fuck that guy. I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't stand that guy.
Yeah.
I would love to get him on the podcast. Can we get that guy on the podcast?
I think we probably can. I'll ask him.
Jesus.
He's an exceptional lawyer, and he's an excellent writer.
I don't agree with anything that guy says.
Yeah. Well,
period. End of story. So I would love to get that guy on the podcast.
And by the way, the guy concentrates on being polarizing. Okay, that's his gig. But he's very good at writing, and I'll never forget that he once wrote this article about the challenges of as you get older as a lawyer, and it's that, you know, I remember there were like 3 or 4 things that made life very hard, and one of them is that as you get older, the demands on your time from your family increase. So, you know, theoretically or typically, when you're a young lawyer and you start your career, you either are not married, or you might not be married, or if you're married, maybe you don't have kids. So like your family demands are a lot less, and that coincides with a time in your career where you're less valuable. Right, you're not billing at $1,000 an hour in your first year out of law school. So what happens is that as time goes by, the family makes greater demands on your time, but at the same time, there are greater demands on you financially. Now you have to provide for kids. Now you have to provide, you know, things like that.
And people are paying more for your time.
Right, and so it gets harder, because it's like, what do? You know, do you spend more time working so you can provide, or do you spend more time with your family, which obviously then takes away from what you can provide? So.
Hard balance, by
you know,
way.
yeah.
Very
I mean, that's the whole thing. And you know, I think that's been the theme of today's show, is that the balance for kids. There's a balance. Like, you know, I don't want my kid to suffer disproportionately, but she has to suffer enough so that she understands what it is that the blessings she has.
Well, and that's why I brought up social media.
You know?
You and I have I can't think of many people that have the same understanding of the importance of there's a Cuban word for it called tabla.
Oh, it's so
right.
great.
Tabla is,
I wish there was a direct translation.
There isn't. The specific translation would be like
Constitution.
Right. No, I know, but like the actual.
Literal translation would be board. Board.
Board. Right. Yeah, that's
like,
it.
and we don't mean like not BORED.
Right, like actual,
we need
wood board.
BOARD.
So I remember lessons.
But hold on, you got to tell them what it means. Tabla means to have tabla means that you can
Constitution.
Right, that you can put up with like getting picked on.
Yes.
You know, that you can take it. Like some kids, you make fun of them and they're like pissed off. They want to go home. Like, don't make fun of me, and they're weirded
and their
out.
parents expect them to go through life without getting made fun of.
Yeah.
Right. So in my house, my kids can make fun of each other. You know, and you know, I have to referee it sometimes and everything, but I allow it.
No, encourage.
And I'll talk to my daughter, you know, in particular, she's the one that usually gets more sensitive. I'm like, he's winning.
Right.
That's what he wants.
Right. The number one rule of ball busting. Don't let the enemy know.
We were going to write a book about it.
We still should. I have the rules saved. There's the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, 48 Laws of Ball Busting.
Which is an exceptional book. I mean, that book in the wrong hands.
It's a good shitter book.
In the wrong hands, that book is problematic.
Yeah.
Okay. But so we were gonna write the 48 Laws of Ball Busting.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place for it.
But we need to get an actual writer.
Yeah, we need somebody
that
knows
we
what the
can
fuck they're
throw
doing.
ideas to them.
Like we're the ball busters, but he's the brain.
Well, and we do it all day, so you know.
But it's funny you say that. So yesterday I'm playing golf with Mike, who you know, Calvo. And Calvo, by the way, guys, just an intro.
As lefty.
He's our professor friend. He's a doctor.
PhD.
He's the guy that's a PhD, and he teaches at
history.
He teaches at the fancy high school. Okay, so it's a big sort. It's great content. One day we should maybe get him on one day. It's very funny.
He won't.
But growing up, Calvo had a debilitating speech impediment.
Right.
Okay, like
I've heard you guys mention it.
Oh my God, it was bad. And what's funny is that now he's got it obviously perfectly under control. He teaches, he lectures all day.
Right.
But man, it's so funny because we used to rag on him about that. And so yesterday we're playing golf, and we're
You had an episode?
No, we're saying crass things to each other as usual. Right. And one of the guys that we were with is like new to the group.
He's like, bro,
and he's a doctor, and he's very nice. And
what is going on?
And he's
here?
a ball buster too. But he was like, man, I don't know these guys, so I don't want to say anything. And I'm telling him the story. I'm like, no. He's like, we said something to Calvo, and he was like, is he cool with that? Is he going to get upset? I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand how we were growing up. The guy had a serious speech impediment. We'd fuck with him all day. He'd be like, hey. And fucking Mike would be like, spit it out, Calvo.
Zero concern about his feelings.
Right, his feelings, bro. What the fuck were those? So that's what we mean by tabla, right? That you got to be able to put up with that. Like, Right. And by the way, in my view, kid grew up to be a much better man.
He's a professor because of you.
Yeah. He
has a PhD.
He's like,
and
not
lectures.
only am I gonna beat this shit, I'm gonna get a job where I gotta talk all fucking day. You know what I mean? Like most people are like, oh, I got a speech impediment. Like, how do I become a fucking a coder?
Right.
All I want to do is sit behind a computer all day and type. Like this guy was like, no, I'm getting ragged on. I got to learn to fucking talk.
But social media right now, suicide for girls is up.
Oh my God, man.
But let me tell you, specifically for girls and feminists, don't worry about it. It's not because women are weak or anything like that. Relax. Let me fucking explain. All right. It's because,
first of all, how are we even sure they're girls?
What? Oh, yeah, you're right. I assigned gender again. Thank you for calling me out on that.
Yeah.
You guys got to help me out with that. I'm going to keep on assigning gender.
Don't worry, bro. We're going to get you to the finish line. Even if we have to drag you, bro, we're going to mold you into a politically correct.
Right. So,
I'll teach you to assume.
Yeah. So, fuck, what was that? So the reason why their suicide is so high because women are brutal. Like I had one of my dear friend's daughters the other day in my car because I was taking them from point A to point B or whatever, and they were talking about like they were making fun of some girl, and I'm like brutal. I'm like, listen, guys, I stopped. Like I'm like, listen, you can't be a dick to people just because they got this particular girl had enormous teeth, right? So which is very funny, and again in our world,
she can put down a carrot like you've never seen.
You know what I'm saying? So but you don't want to be a bully.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You don't want to raise a bully. You don't want to raise somebody, but you want to raise somebody. And again, this is not a parenting podcast. It's more like what the fuck are we going to do to fix society problem, right? Like society is headed towards the soft, I can't take anything. And if this is anything as a podcast on like, I guess, success.
I wonder how many negative comments we'll get on that. I love that. Because that there's this belief out there that that's not true.
What's not true?
That we're getting softer. And what the term that the right was using a few years ago was the pussification of America. Yeah. Sorry again, anyone that's offended, but that was the term. And then there's this pushback.
By the way, he's kidding. I don't give a fuck if anybody gets offended. I just want to make sure. I don't want to make it sound like we actually give a fuck. We don't give a flying
people are
fuck
listening,
if you guys
they're
get
like,
offended or
we're
not.
not sure what's going on here. Are these guys assholes or not? And then somebody's going to chime in. Oh, they're assholes. Don't you worry about that. So no, but me and you,
zero fucks.
We sit here and we talk about it as if it's assumed. Like, of course, society's getting softer.
You're saying there's people that don't believe it.
Of course, no. They're like, no, we're not. You guys are just fucking idiots. It's like you're meatheads, and it's the end of the era of the meathead. There's nothing wrong with that,
right? So if social media, so the reason why specifically girls suicide is up is because girls are brutal. Okay, and now it never. Oh, I wish I'd been awesome.
Man, that would have fucked up.
That would have been so amazing.
Ah, damn.
So women. So now with social media, it doesn't turn off when school ends.
No, man.
It doesn't stop at 2:30, 3:30. It
on the contrary, school's like the only time you get off the hook because you can't use a phone.
Right. So it is all the way to 11 o'clock at night and everything like that. So if you do anything, Like you're literally by teaching them mental toughness and being able to absorb a mental beating, and there should be classes on getting your ass kicked.
There really should.
And they go in there and you just make fun of them. Your teeth are huge and your fucking ears are, you know, that's all you really do is they gotta fucking sit there and take it, you know, and how you react. And
you gotta
flinch,
like come back on one. You gotta learn to say thank you.
No, you got to be able to ignore it. So the thing about social media, it has to do with the tabla part, right? Like tabla is extremely important. You got to be able to take the ass whooping. You got to be able to take, and that's why
goes back to our comment about the negative commenters,
right? And those guys think they affect us. That's why they probably stopped. I mean, guys, listen, please start sending the negative comments again. I don't know what I gotta say to. My worry is that you guys will completely stop. We don't give a fuck.
The sweet scientists stop boxing.
Should we stop? Should we say we give a fuck so they and make it seem like it hurts? So
I really get upset when someone calls me out.
I don't want them to stop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
God bless.
We had because it was way lower this week, right? Like way lower this week.
People are like, oh, these guys are pretty good. And it's like, oh, fuck you. That's not what we wanted to hear. No, but it's funny you say that about the type of abuse that women give to each other. Is like a great joke that, I mean, it wasn't even a joke. I heard it at a Whole Foods. I was in line at Whole Foods and there was this.
Because you only shop at Whole Foods?
No. No. I'm a Publix fan.
What are those shoes they sell there? The Toms? Do you wear Toms while you was it?
Not ever, bro. I would listen if you ever catch me
scarf,
wearing
one
Toms,
of those scarves
bro,
that they sell the Toms and scarves.
Getting caught dead in Toms would be horrifically embarrassing, bro.
Like you actually die in Toms.
Fuck. God bless, bro. It's legacy killer. So anyway, but I hear this guy and he's on the phone. He's clearly on the phone with his wife. You know, and he's arguing about something and he hangs up and he looks at his son and the kid's there. The kid looks up at him and he says, son, I'm gonna tell you something right now. Don't try to understand women. Women understand women. That's why they hate each other. Okay, and it's very funny. And I say that in front of women, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's so true. That's hysterical."
They're brutal, man. They're brutal to each other, and so you have to. You're almost saving your daughter's life just by teaching them how to be able to take a beating. And like I said, like in my house, I let my son just constantly fuck with my daughter. Right? Because, you know, if I see her crying, if I see her freaking out, I sit down and I go, okay, so let's talk about this. What did he say? You know, he said that I'm a baby or whatever. Are you a baby? You know, are you this? Are you that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you know, and you teach them how to deal with it and come back. Because again, social media, dude, it's a danger. Like another thing our parents didn't have.
Big time.
Right? So, you know.
Hold on one second, because I'm getting
called.
Who is
that? Is that somebody I know?
Yes.
Let me see. Is that a picture of the person I know? I don't know that guy.
Yes, sir. Hold on.
We've never taken a call during the podcast before.
I know. Well, we should start taking them. Hey, sir, how are you? It's on my reception desk in my office. I texted you this morning. Yep, it's in there waiting for you.
Oh, I know who that
No,
is.
I'm in Doral recording a podcast. Almost done. But
is this going to be the first podcast we edit?
No, we don't have to edit that.
Yeah,
people will be wondering, who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Like, I have to answer.
So yeah, with the social media thing, you know, it all goes back to, you know, we have to prepare these humans. Let's forget about kids. I don't want it to seem like this is a parenting podcast, right? But it's more like how do we prepare these humans to deal with what's going to come in right now, right? Which is, you know, social media ass whoopings and the negative comments and everything.
Forget the kids. The first group of people who we did the wrong things with are now adults in their fields. Remember, we were making fun of one of them. I made the mistake of suggesting that there was a tweet. I even said it was a tweet about a guy whose daughter was coming back from college and she wanted part-time work as a CEO, and we got a big laugh out of it. And somebody was like, classic fucking boomer right here. And then some other asshole was like, well, it's 2023 and the millennials are no longer in college. So that's, you know, that's how dumb you are. It's like, okay, man, it's a joke. I mean, you didn't get it. You didn't understand because you're one of those fucking people. Like you got a nasty email. You went to complain to HR.
Right.
Okay. And so like, you know, like HR is a massive department now. Like, you know, like before the company started, HR was like something you had to have because, you know, you were getting sophisticated. Now, if you have a fucking nursery and you don't have an HR department, you're dying to get sued.
And also, like, also surrounding yourself with friends ones that are gonna bust your balls is also very, very important.
Of course.
Like you just to keep yourself like in
Of course,
check.
bro.
You don't want to climb.
Even with us.
Yeah, right. Like when he got appointed to Freck, which was to me maybe more of a big deal to me because I'm in real estate all day and
he's
everything.
like, our friendship will finally pay off.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't imagine how, because I'm not doing anything for you.
Yeah, and I also said, I go, but you're still an asshole in my book, so don't get fucking cocky with me. You know what I mean? So you bring yourself back, and that's the stuff that
even with dead mothers.
Huh?
Even with dead mothers.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, my buddy's mom died, and in the chat, one of the guys, like, she died on the day of, and everybody's like, oh, man, so sorry, Al, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad I was there to get it one last time.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Not everybody can handle these.
You're such a dick, bro.
That's actually the Hugo voice you use there. I'm just telling you that.
Never say that.
It is. It is. So, so yeah, man, I mean, we I don't know, man. Nobody has the book. Nobody has. I know there is parenting books, but it's probably just full of a bunch of
terrible
shit.
Yeah,
right. That's another thing we should probably do.
The authors are like,
don't raise
terrible.
a pussy.
She's like, it's a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
Well, fuck.
Like, don't raise a pussy. Would be one of the subjects. So I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you got in mind?
No, I mean, look, I think today was good. We got a little bit outside the box, talked a little bit about business, the impact of New Yorkers, right? And people from California and Chicago here in Florida. We talked about, kind of how to try to make productive members of society.
Yeah.
You got to have a balance.
And we'll leave it with this, what we're really talking about with this is what are the keys to success? Right? Like to be a successful member of society, to be a successful, you just can't
productive member,
productive, successful. Yeah. No, and I'm leaning more towards successful because if you're there's just no or very little pussies at the top of the business world. Fair to say?
That's right.
I mean, you don't get there.
And we mean that in the not in the literal sense. We mean it in the
right. Yes, no, there is vaginas.
Right.
There is vaginas because there's.
I'm here to help you be clear.
I thank you. You're
right.
clear.
Ambiguity is negative. Right.
So yes,
there are a few weak-minded people.
You don't
at
get
the top of the business world.
So if you're trying to raise a businessman or businesswoman, somebody who's
or
going
a
to be
business person,
a business
business person,
right? A business person.
Say it with me, good.
You don't get to the top of the business world without taking ass whoopings, giving ass whoopings. You got to be able to take a loss and not freak out. Right? You got to be able to take extreme pressure.
That's like that great meme of the iceberg, and it's like you see the top success and then everything that's under the water,
all the way in the bottom.
Yeah, it's the
way
you got to
be able to. You got to be able to handle. Like you have to be as productive and even maybe more focused during extreme pressure.
Oh, let's leave it on that. That's the great one. Oh, you got to hear this.
When I called you.
Oh my God. So this guy in the downturn. First of all, in the run up, things you don't know about Jesus. Okay, make us proud of our little go-getter here. So in the run up, this guy was in real estate and he got successful. He bought a bunch of properties. Okay, so he had a bunch of investment properties. He had an office, the one we're sitting in now. He had a house, you name it. He had made 10, 12, 15 properties. He bought a fucking airplane. He taught himself how to fly the airplane. He had an office in Texas and in Tampa. He'd get in his own plane. He'd fly
Tampa,
around
Orlando, Gainesville.
Yeah, so he was
I would
doing
fly
real
myself
well.
to.
And then the world ended with the downturn. And when the world ended, man, all of these properties went into foreclosure. And when I tell you that there was a time when I swear to you, it was 20 foreclosure cases pending at one time. There were so many, we couldn't even keep them straight. I couldn't keep them straight.
Well, it wasn't only, it was just loss, just creditors.
Yeah,
this
everything.
And that.
Yeah,
The
everything.
whole world falls apart.
Yeah,
on me.
and
I remember even the IRS showed up one day when the fucking world was falling apart. My front desk goes, "Hey, somebody's here at the IRS." I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm not in the mood for jokes. I'm not in the mood for jokes." She's like,
"It's not a joke."
She's like, "No, it's not a joke." I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm not fucking around. Like, Jesus, I promise you, the IRS is here." Dude, there's a picture somewhere on my phone. The guy sat right there, and I just took a picture on like the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
And the world is falling apart, and the IRS shows up.
We used to call them foreclosures. The lawsuits, we used to call them foreclosures. Again, we just couldn't keep track of them. Yeah. And so every day in the afternoon, we talk about what we were trying to accomplish. And I'll never forget, I was driving home, and I'm on 8th Street. I'm right in front of FIU. And this guy's telling me to do things in these cases that there is no basis in the law for what he's asking for. Okay, his ideas of how to solve these problems did not exist. And of course, I'm fucking yelling at him. I'm like, it doesn't fucking work that way. We can't do that. Da, da, da. And so everything he's suggesting.
By the way, I was in Texas. I was in Texas, bro, selling like, I don't know, a huge project.
Everything he's suggesting, I'm shooting full of holes. And finally he says, okay, bro, you know what? I just want you to know it's fine. It's fine. You want to know why? Because I thrive on negative energy. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah? Well, then you should be running at 110%.
Dude, it was I know exactly where I was.
Bro.
I know
you're Satan.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Fucking hate you.
Yeah, I know exactly where I was. I know exactly what was the whole world. I had just had my God, one of like 3 panic attacks. You know what I mean?
Some guy showed up at his like own home that no longer even had furniture and shit.
Yeah.
He was like, looked in through the rear view or the sliding glass door, and this guy buck naked got up and beat the fuck out of the guy at 2 in the morning.
No, I chased the guy. I didn't get to beat the fuck out of him. But he was, I was like, what the fuck is that guy doing in my backyard? And he was inspecting the house for a foreclosure. So, dude, listen, man. I don't know if you guys can see. I've always been a big guy. I've been in martial arts my entire life. I've been in 1,000 fights. I mean,
he inspected
I'm the wrong fucking house, guy. Bro. I'm the wrong.
He was like, goddamn.
I'm angry as hell at life. I'm the wrong guy to be in the backyard at that point. I never forget that I came out. He saw me. He fucking makes a right. He hits the fence because he has to make a right and then a right to get out of the house. And I remember he hits the fucking fence, bro. I'm right behind him trying to grab him. Dude, he gets in the car. He was a huge pickup truck. And I remember I climb on the pickup truck and I'm elbowing the window, trying to break the window to get through to just grab him. Because I didn't know he was like, I thought he was somebody trying to break into my house.
Right.
You know
how did you find out he was an inspector? The police showed up the next day.
Just two and two together.
He was like, no, Detective Ramsey showed up to tell me that.
Dude, let me tell you, that guy had a tough situation there because I was gonna if I would have caught him, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad he was faster than me and he got in that car and he was able to close that door.
He was a little more nimble.
He was way more nimble. But yeah, those are horrible times. But to give this asshole credit, one of the very few people that kind of stuck with me and people wonder why I put up with this guy is because he was there during the absolute. He was busting my balls the whole way through. I mean, that never stopped. Yeah. No matter what. No matter how difficult.
Bang up job, buddy. Way to get yourself into all this shit.
But we got out of it and we're doing great. So
and we're here recording podcasts with all of you fine people.
Isn't that right? Under amazing lighting today, by the way. This is the lighting.
No shit. They gave you the blue today. The blue. I had the blue.
Is that what it is?
Looking better.
The other one's a little bit too in your face. This one's good. That one's horrible.
No. Yeah. The one where you can see the zits is spectacular.
Zits from like fucking 10 years ago. All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Great episode. See you next week.